How's Patty about Cincinnati? What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.
Hello, Reds fans. Today, Jack and I welcome a behind-the-scenes legend, Dave Yitty Armbruster. Of all the thousands of Cincinnati Reds games on the radio to last 39 years, there is likely no one who's listened to more of them than the guy who spent nearly 4 decades getting them on the air. That's Dave Yitty Armbruster, who has been with 700 WLW radio since 1982. Although putting it that way does a great disservice to his radio career, which has included nearly every on and off air role imaginable. Dave has been the producer and engineer of the Reds radio network since 1986, which means he is tasked with handling the technical parts of the broadcast and is ready to handle the feedback from the announcers when things occasionally go wrong. It also means there isn't a person besides the late Joe Nuxhall who spent more time in a broadcast booth with Marty Brennaman. Dave Armbruster, welcome to We Love Our Team.
And we do love our team. Thank you. This is great.
All right.
Oh, look at the applause.
How about that?
Hey, Dave, we're just delighted to have you today, and it's great to meet you. So tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up and how you found yourself in the booth with these guys for all these years.
Well, pretty interesting. I grew up in Cincinnati, grew up in Mount Airy, went to LaSalle High School, went to Little Flower Grade School, LaSalle High School. There you go.
Yeah, baby.
76, Dave. This is 76 right here. What were you?
See, there you go. And then it got interesting because I went to UC, and my best friend went to Xavier, and he was in communications and radio at Xavier. I was in, of all things, urban planning at UC. I was DAP before they added the P. It was just DAA back then. And he was in charge of the rock station at VXU. And summer came and all the kids went home. And he goes, man, I'm desperate. Do you want to come in and do a shift? Okay, I'm stupid. I don't know. So I go in and I play, I think it was Wednesday nights, 2 to 6 a.m. And I went in there every week and played, rock music and learned how to be a jock. And then it took them 2 years to figure out I didn't go to school there. And that's when I got kicked out. But by that time, I had gotten a job at WLW. Because another person that worked there, her name was Barb Boyle. She worked at LW and got me a job doing basically at that point we did call out research. Because if you remember back in the early 80s, WLW still played music. And we were, you'd call people and ask them what they listened to and all that. And then you jump from that. And the next thing you do is run what we called God Squad. You had to run the religious tapes on Sunday morning and Sunday night. And I did that for years, where you go in at 6 a.m. on a Sunday. It was a lot. So that's how you learn your chops. And then when Randy Michaels took over the station, and I believe it was 1983, they started adding talk shows. And I started producing the talk show Midday, which was Randy first, and then Mike McConnell. Started that like day 2 of when that show started, and I did it ever since for 15, 20 years until I got out of that a little bit. But in the meantime, we played music, so I jocked on the weekends and overnights basically. I'd come in and one particular story, and I have proof on that because my then girlfriend, now wife, was with me. I go in at 2 a.m. and I'm playing music, and I played Papa's Got a Brand New Bag, I think. And all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's James Brown. The real James Brown called. Someplace buried, I have that tape. I just don't know where. And I knew it was him because I couldn't understand a word he said. He was going, it was hilarious.
That's awesome.
So that was That was my first brush with fame. With fame was James Brown calling me in the middle of the night.
Well, speaking of which, we've talked on the this podcast before. I've always advocated the Reds ought to play "I Feel Good" after every Reds victory at home. What do you think about that idea?
I like it.
Yeah.
They should. It's great.
Now, hey, Dave, were you a baseball player growing up, and were you a Reds fan?
I was definitely a Reds fan. Definitely a baseball player. I played at Mount Airy Fields, and I played for Carter's Marathon at Coleraine and Kirby Avenue until I got cut in 7th grade. And then I moved up and played on a different team. And, that was pretty much the end of my competitive baseball career. Then it turned to softball for a while.
Now I tried to ask before, but what years you graduated from us out? I mean, the dates are
1979.
You're younger than me. Okay. I was 76. So we would have crossed paths for 1 year, I think. So, yeah.
Perfect.
It was a great place to be. How'd you get the name Yiddy?
Because when I was little, my older brother, he's a year older than me, couldn't say David, and it came out Yid, and it has stuck ever since. It's never gone away, and I guess I made the mistake of telling people that, so it went with me wherever I went. So
yeah,
simple as that. Nothing more complicated.
Well, I told you I was listening to the Jim Day podcast with you, doing some research here, and I learned in that podcast why Sag Dennison is called Sag Dennison. But
you are correct. You can thank Bob Trumpy for that.
that is an acronym, Randy. Are you aware of why Sag is Sag?
I am not.
It is a reference to his grin. Let's just put it that way. You can think what the SE and the stands for. So.
Eat and grin, and the S word before that. That is what it's for.
Hey, Dave, your name is synonymous with Reds broadcast, but nobody knows what you do, I think, other than when they hear you on the pre- and post-game shows. So could you tell our listeners a little bit about your roles?
Yeah, I mean, most of it is technical. Most of it is going in, setting up microphones, making sure, everything's working correctly, connect to the station, and make sure those guys, in some cases, make sure they have what they need to read, check headsets, keep people out of the booth, a little security here and now and then, and just make everything run smooth. So a lot of it's just is technical stuff that, it's, if you've never done it before, I'm sure it's complicated, but when you do it forever, it's kind of second nature. You just kind of do it, and it's fun. I mean, that's the main part of my job. And it's funny because radio, there's just me. Like TV broadcast, they have, 12 people doing support because of the cameras and all that. We don't do that in radio. It's me and the 2 announcers and somebody back at the station hitting commercials. So it's kind of a slim operation, and you probably wouldn't know that, but we just do it ourselves.
Mm. So that's kind of the set during the game. Kind of what are you doing during the game?
Well, main job obviously is to keep an eye on their mics to make sure everything's working. If the crowd gets real loud, you bring it down a little bit. When there's fireworks, you bring noise down a little bit just to make sure it sounds okay on the air. And then most of the time I'm getting ready for the post-game show. So I spend a lot of time, making notes on that game, keeping score, and keeping tabs on the other games going on around baseball. And I'll tell you what, with the new rule changes a few years ago where these games are done in 2.5 hours, there's a lot going on in a very small amount of time. So you got to hustle a little bit to get it finished.
Oh, yeah. So were you, I think this was probably before you were the producer, but Marty and Joe, for a little bit, called the game from the stands, didn't they?
They did. And when they did it from the stands, that's right. That was before me. So that was in early 80s. They did it from like center field. And we did it again the year Marty retired. We did it from behind home plate. And we did 3 games against the Brewers. And that's when Marty and Brantley were doing the game. And I know Tom came down for a while, and Bob Euchre was there. So he came down and sat in with them for a few innings during those games. Those were fun, and that's something I'd love to do again. If you do it from, there, do it from the cheap seats in center field. That's a lot of fun because the fans are there and it's a blast.
Tell us about working with Marty and Joe.
That was the best times of my life. And I know I've said this to people before. There was one particular day I came home, and I think it's happened more than once. And I'd come home after a game, and I'm sitting there laying in bed, and I just start laughing. And my wife opened her mouth and said, "Let me guess, something Marty said." And the answer is yes, every time, because he says stuff, the most outrageous things at the most outrageous times. And it's great. But they were great. It was so much fun. It wasn't like a job. It was so much fun working with those two. And then Jeff after that as well. But those early days with Marty and Joe, they were something because, that Marty would just beat on anybody. It was, you were in Marty's world. It's Marty's world. You're just in it. And you're just a bit player in Marty's world. And he would just kill you or destroy you. And if he would only pick on you if he liked you, though. So if you got picked on, you knew that was high praise from Marty Brennaman. We used to have, and up until he retired, starting at Riverfront and then at Great American, we would all eat dinner at the same time. It would be about 5:30 or whatever. It would be Marty, Jeff. Joe never did. Joe, when he was around, he would eat downstairs in the clubhouse. But it would be Marty, Jeff, Jim Day, me, whoever else is around, and we would sit at a table. And it was Marty Brennaman holding court, is what it was. And the stories, the stuff that came out of his mouth, most of which I can't repeat, but it was just hilarious. And I want to say it was Steve Stewart when he was the announcer for a short time. I think we were going through the line, and I think it was him, dropped his tray full of food. That's all Marty needed. He went nuts on him. He said, "What do you do for an encore?" And I can't repeat the rest. But it was those were like unbelievable fun days, and they were it was every day with Marty because the guy loved his job and he loved being at the ballpark, and it just was his personality.
Hey, so Dave, you must have been in the booth for the Dave Pallone game, right?
Oh, absolutely, I was. Yeah.
I'd love to hear what that was like. I mean,
they were mad.
Yeah.
When all that happened, they were mad at Riverfront, and as you recall, when the tunnel from behind home plate where the umps and the players would come in, the very next day, that never had a tarp on it. The next day, that whole thing was covered because they were afraid he was going to get pelted with bottles and beer and everything else. But when Marty came back, you remember they had to go see the commissioner.
Yeah.
And he came back, and when he walked out of that tunnel with a piece of masking tape or black tape over his mouth because he couldn't talk about it, it was hilarious. That was a crazy, because Joe, I love Joe, but he took this game serious, and he did not like that at all when the Pallone stuff. So he was not happy that day.
Was it intimidating to come into the booth with Marty when you first started, Marty and Joe?
Are you? Yes. The answer is yes, a resounding yes. And sometimes it was still intimidating. I mean, because as nice as Marty is, Marty also wants things to be right. So stuff better be correct. And, truth be told, there was a lot of times there were problems. He never knew about them because I wouldn't tell him. I just go about and fix it and move on because I didn't want to hear the wrath of him. When you knew you were in trouble when he would start with "you people," and I was okay, this is not good.
I assume you were never late for a broadcast. I heard Marty was Mr. Punctuality.
I was never late for a broadcast. Thankfully, I cut it close a couple times in spring training. There is a story about one person being late, and this was like the first year of Steve Stewart, or maybe it's second year, because Joe was still working. So he was doing some games and Steve was doing the other ones. and we were in Sarasota, and we had to go to, I think, Kissimmee. I don't remember, but it was a night game. So we have to meet at 2:00 or whatever time it was. Marty's there, I'm there, and Steve's not there. And it's getting close to the time we said we were going to meet. And all of a sudden, this car just whips into the parking lot, and the passenger door flies open, and Steve basically falls out of the car because he knew he was late, and he knew Marty was not happy. So we get in the car, and I was driving, and not one word was spoken till the time we got to Kissimmee. And it's a good hour and 25 minutes or something like that to get there. And I go up and set my stuff up. Nobody has talked yet. I finally walk out of the room for something, and Marty just berated him. You know, the whole, I've been here 40 years. I've never been late for a game, and I better not be late again. And Steve was just like a whoop dog. It was funny.
Poor Steve, man. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, poor Steve took a beating. There's no question about that.
Did Marty ever carve you up over anything?
Yes. I'm trying to think any specifics, but yeah, he would carve me up pretty good, but knowing that we still got to get on the air and everything's still got to be good. But oh yeah, he would. But the one thing I learned with Marty is sit there and take it. Don't fight back because you can't win. You know, the old adage about fighting writers, they buy ink in the barrels, by the barrel so they can kill you. That's Marty. I can't beat him. And I know that, so I just take it.
We had Amanda on the podcast sometime, and I don't know. I have a feeling Amanda doesn't sit back and take it. Probably, I'm just guessing.
No, they do. She does not take it, but the rest of us have to.
The rest of you have to. Hey, let me ask you, and I hope this isn't an uncomfortable question, but what do you think about the rotating broadcasters? I mean, we grew up, and it was always Marty. You turn on the radio, it's Marty, it's Joe, and more recently it may be Welsh, it may be Brantley. What do you think about that?
I'm on your side. I like, if it was my druthers, it would be two guys on radio, two guys on TV, and they never moved. But that's not today's broadcasting world. It's not going to happen. No teams do it. I don't know who the first was who, rotated around and stuff. I know, like even LA did it years ago. And then I think that when Tom was in Chicago, that's one of the things they didn't want him. I think that's part of the reason he went to Arizona, because they didn't want him gone on the weekends to do national stuff for Fox or whatever. But that's just how it is today. I mean, and especially when you're talking with ex-players, these guys make so much money now. It's not like, Nuxhall had a job in the off season when he was playing. So it's not like he could just not do it. But you see guys now, the Paul O'Neills of the world with the Yankees, he might do 20, 30 games because they don't need to, they're not, they want to do it because it's fun, not because they have to. And I don't think that'll ever change.
Yeah. And I guess Larkin just doesn't feel like traveling. Is that?
Yeah, that was the deal they cut. He does all the home games, and Jeff now does pretty much all the road games on TV, and Chris comes over to the radio side.
Yeah.
And how would you compare working as an engineer producer with Marty compared to working with somebody like Tommy Thrall?
It's in a lot of ways it's about the same. Although I will tell you that nobody intimidates you like Marty, and I had a lot of fun, but oh boy, this guy is, he's in the Hall of Fame, and I don't care how many years I did it. It was still like, okay, I got to get this right. I got to get this, make sure everything is working right. But it's in a lot of ways it's the same. I mean, they're just two different personalities. And when you're in the booth, and it's still fun, just fun in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you another tough question. So it's a Monday. I guess I'm in a tough mood here today. But I think there was a perception in town sometimes that Marty was a little tough on, maybe a little too tough on some players. I'm thinking about like Adam Dunn, Jay Bruce, Homer Bailey a little bit. Just you think his criticism was fair? Do you think he went too far ever?
I honestly think most of his criticism was fair. Did he go too far over the line once in a while? Probably. I will tell you this. I don't think you'll ever see that again from a broadcaster. I think the days of broadcasters with free reign, if that's the term to use, are probably done.
Yeah.
And that's for a lot of reasons, not just because it was Marty, but if you think about the big personalities that did radio in the past, the Jack Bucks of the world and Marty, of course, and Harry Callis in Philly, and those guys, they were just bigger than life. But media has changed so much, and there's so many options now. And I just don't think a broadcaster will be bigger than the game itself. In a lot of ways, I think they were, because that's, it's not every game. Think about that. When we were younger, not every game was on TV. You might have got 20 games. So you got your information from Marty and Joe, and they were the king of the world. And I can tell you that they are a big part of WLW's success. Without the Reds, we wouldn't be where we are.
Sure.
So they're just a big part of it. But I just don't think teams are going to let announcers have that kind of free reign anymore. I think those days are probably completely done.
Well, I mean, Dick Wagner certainly tried to rein Marty in.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes. I mean, and I don't know, that was probably before your time, but I know that he tried to put a third guy in the booth at one time. And
Yep.
Crazy.
Yep. No, I was there when that happened.
Oh,
and the third guy in the booth, and Dick Carlson was his name, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that did not go over well. So it was, Marty versus Dick Wagner. And it's kind of funny because I was with Marty, and we were he talked a little bit about Dick Wagner and how, they didn't see eye to eye, but he still respected Dick Wagner because that's the guy that hired Marty to come to the Reds. And it was, but when it came to the broadcasting stuff, yeah, they went at each other quite a bit. But I just don't think you're ever going to see announcers have that kind of power anymore.
I think I referred to it as kind of Marty becoming Marty. And I wonder if you can pinpoint a time where you think that occurred. Like, obviously, he was sort of a homer when he joined the club in 1974. And at some point, it feels like the reins were off of him or something. He just got more freewheeling and more willing to be open and honest about the players or the club.
Well, if I had I don't know if I can pinpoint one day, but I think it probably is when, it is hard to criticize the team in the 70s because they were so damn good.
Right.
I think as the team, progressively got worse and worse, and there was some slim years in there. I think that's probably when he got a little bolder. I don't know and he went into the Hall of Fame in 2000, so I don't think that was it, because I think he was, bold before then. But I think the stuff he said was fair. I really do. And here's the other thing that people don't understand and realize is that you get a lot of talk show hosts that'll do that. And they're brave, and they'll say stuff about teams and this, that, and the other. But every day, the next day, if Marty said something on the broadcast, without fail, he was in that clubhouse the next day. And if you wanted a piece of him, he was there to get the piece of him. And he would explain. And I know a lot of times, him and players went at it. And but at the end of the day, he had his say and he was fair. I don't think he ever took cheap shots at anybody. I think the stuff, for the most part, was warranted. What's really funny, though, because you mentioned Adam Dunn, and I think it's hilarious because now Adam Dunn, in a lot of ways, is a darling of analytics because he was home run or strike out. And that's just not the way we watched baseball early on. But though he was basically a front runner to what players are today.
Yep.
And, you look at his numbers and it proves it. He hit a lot of home runs and he struck out a lot of times.
He walked a little bit too. I mean,
he walked a ton.
Yeah, he walked a little bit. I remember, when Marty shaved his head, I remember the game when they won that was going to make him do that. And I think Latos pitched a complete game. I remember watching on TV and Latos points up to like the booth. He was so excited that Marty was going to have to shave his head. I mean,
all on a bet.
Right? Marty started, right? Didn't Marty?
I think. If I think the story went, he said, I think he was talking to the coach, Chris Spires, and he said, this team can't win 10 games in a row. And Chris said, well, if they do, you shave your head. Mark said, okay, I'll do that. Never thinking that would happen. But that turned out that's a big event. That turned out that's one of those things about Marty that is big. Because if anybody else did that, nobody would care.
Right.
But he did it, and all of a sudden, it's on the post-game show on TV like a big deal. It's not like they did it in the clubhouse, and that's what I've always said about Marty is for 3 hours a night, it was the Marty Brennaman Show. Baseball just happened to be there. It was the vehicle, and that's what I'm talking about with the personalities. That's what he's bigger than life personalities, and that's the stuff. That's why he fits so well with WLW.
Yeah.
Because we were built on big personalities. You know, it's not a music station. It's the Jim Scotts of the world, the Mike McConnells of the world, the Gary Burbanks of the world, big names. And that's what Marty was. He was a big personality. And you just happened to be invited into his house for 3 hours every night, and he entertained you.
Well, you had a big personality putting that lineup together with Randy Michaels. I mean, speaking of big personality, right?
Those were great days, and I don't know that people can ever appreciate at its prime what WLW was. It was the best radio station in this country, and I will go to my grave believing that, because we had some of the most talented people I've ever seen. And Randy put it all together, and, you know, he took chances. People were afraid to take chances. He wasn't. He took them. Some worked, some didn't work. I mean, Lynn Gladhill, the psychic at night, that didn't work so well. But the rest of the stuff, I mean, we had a Truck and Bozo show all night that killed it. I mean, you know, 38 states at night. It was great.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave, how much of an off season do you get? I mean, 162 game season. Plus, you've got spring training. So, I mean, you're working virtually every day for 190, 200 days. Do they give you any time off before and after the baseball season?
No, because I do Bengals too. So August and September August and September are the worst months of my life, because Bengals are playing and the Reds are playing. So it's like double duty. And then, you know, they extended the football season now till the last game's not till January 9th or something. And the Bengals are good, so they go to the playoffs every year. So that goes. And I do Xavier basketball in between all that. And then I jump in and go to spring training as well. But spring training's the best, by the way. If you guys have been there, it's the best. There's nothing like spring training.
I totally agree with you. How about your golf game out there in spring training, Dave? I hear you're a hell of a golfer from my friend Mark Hiltz.
No, I'm not a hell of a golfer, but I enjoy it, and I do play at a fair amount out in Arizona. The problem is it's hard to play 18 holes because there's games every day. So you go out, you play 9 a.m, go to the ballpark. That's fun. I have a great time. And that's one thing I missed with Marty, because when we were in Florida in spring training, we played a lot down there. And if you ever play golf with Marty Brennaman, he may not be the best golfer in the world, but he's the quickest. There is no messing around. You don't stand over your shot. You hit the damn ball and move on to the next one, and you're done in 3 hours. It's great.
How about the players? Do you, when you're doing the Reds on radio, it sounds like you got a lot of technical things to do, and you're working with the announcers. Do you interact with the players very much?
No, not a whole lot. Maybe some more in spring training than once the season gets underway. But I try to go down to the clubhouse as much as I can. But I also look at it this way: that's their place of business. They just don't want people hanging around. If you have something you got to do, go down and do it. But you know, nobody wants that. Nobody wants people hanging around that they're behind their back when they're trying to work. So not a lot. I mean, spring training more, and probably more years ago, more so than now. But I just let those guys do their job and I do mine.
Well, you said earlier that part of your job is kind of a security guard in the broadcast booth, and I meant to follow up on that. Do you mean people, friends of Marty, acquaintances, are just trying to bust into the broadcast booth to say hello?
Yeah, you'll have that. I mean, that's sometimes that door opens. You don't know who the heck it is. People just walk in. For the most part, it's tame, but there was a time it wasn't. I mean, just people. Who is this person and why is he here? Every once in a while, you have some stragglers come in there, but people want to come in and see him, and I get that. And you know, if as long as you ask in advance, it's usually not a problem, because that's the one thing they were, and Jeff is too. They're very accommodating with fans, and I've seen announcers not be, but those guys are. You want to come in and say hi? Come in and say hi. That's fine. We'll sign what you need, and we'll move on. I mean, when you leave the ballpark in spring training, they're virtually stopped every day by people, and I've never seen them turn down an autograph. They just sit and talk to them and sign it, and if they got to go, they got to go. But it's like, okay, here, I'll talk to you soon. See you, bye. So it's good. But yeah, there are some people that kind of straggle into the booth now and then.
Was it? I'm trying to remember. Was it Roddy Piper that was in the booth, or was it Jesse Ventura?
No, it was Randy Macho Man Savage. Was the greatest days of my life, because we had this. This is the Marge Schott eras now, and her nephew was in the front office doing something, and he knew about this. But Macho Man, they were wrestling next door at the Coliseum. I want to say this was, I think it was 89, because I think the year Pete got suspended, but I'm not 100% sure. They're wrestling next door, and we all watched wrestling back then. Marty and Joe loved it, because the Macho Man and Hulk Hogan and the whole bunch. So they were going to be in town. So somebody asked, "Do you want Macho Man to come over in the booth?" Hell yeah, we do. And it was a Thursday afternoon. They were playing the Padres, and Marge, Ray Kroc's wife, owned the team at that time, and Marge heads in her booth, and he comes up, and nobody dreamed in a million years he'd come up dressed as Macho Man. We decided he was going to come in as, Randy Poffo, the ex-Red farmhand. And he walks in his full regalia, and it was so funny. I couldn't believe it. He sits down and talks to him and does the, oh yeah. And they're asking questions. And then he says, I think we went to a break. He said, I need something to tear up. So we had this. I said, use this. There's this big poster of Hulk Hogan. So we get back, and he stands up there in the break, and he tears this big Hulk Hogan poster up into a million pieces and throws it out to the stands. And the players start looking up, and I'm dying. I mean, I remember Eric Davis coming out of the booth and like posing, doing the muscle thing up at him. And it was great, but Marge did not like it.
Really?
Marge was not happy.
Why?
And so who knows?
Okay.
She said it was taken away from her. So she sends her nephew up to stop it. And he comes up there, and, Macho Man was leaving anyway. So he gets done, and he comes up, and he goes in the booth, and he says, Mrs. Schott looks at Marty, Mrs. Schott wants to see you in her office after the game. And then he points to me and says, and you too. And I'm going, me? What the hell did I do? So we get called to Marge's office, and I'm sitting in the back of her office with Jim Ferguson, who was the PR guy at the time. And I can't keep a straight face. I'm trying to be real serious about this. And she's mad at Marty, and Steve says something like, well, I almost had to physically remove him from the booth. And Marty says, Steve, shut up. If you would have tried to physically remove him, he would have pinched your neck off. And at that point, I'm just cracking up. And his life went on. And somewhere I have the picture of us, and I think it's actually in the Reds Hall of Fame someplace, or in a closet down there. of Macho Man and Marty and Joe in the booth. It was funny.
Oh,
And then they also had the Elvis thing, right? They had Elvis in the booth in a way, I think.
They did. And Elvis, it was, I don't even know how it started, but I remember Marty and I just talking about Elvis for some reason. And then all of a sudden he wanted people to send memorabilia. If you got Elvis stuff that you do not want back, you send it to us. And at Riverfront, we had a great big booth with these lockups in the back. And so every night before the game started, we drug all this stuff out. There was Elvis, the big Elvis bust. It sat right in front between Marty and Joe every single night. And we had, Elvis street signs hanging up, Elvis ties, whatever. If it had Elvis on it, we had it. Just in the booth. I mean, it looked like a damn museum or something. So one day during batting practice, I guess the players weren't happy. Joe Oliver started rifling baseballs at Elvis, and he whacked him one and took out the side of him on the ceramic part of him. So Elvis survived the assassination attempt in the booth. And they were just, I don't even know why Elvis came up, but it did. And it was just funny for the whole summer.
Oh my God.
We had more crap that we set up. We had a Julie Isfording won some race. It might've been like the Reds 5K or something. And she just gave us the trophy. So every night we just put it out in front of the booth. And then at night he had to put it away, put the Elvis bust away. Every night we did this. It was stupid, but it was so funny.
You got to tell us about the banana phone. Tell some, maybe our younger listeners, about the banana phone.
The banana phone was a real thing. This all started. It started the year the WLW took over the broadcast. In other words, we did it all, except for paying the announcers. It was our production, and our general manager at the time, when there was a rain delay, we would just throw it back to the station, and whatever else was on, that's what played. But he said, we need to try to do something else. So somebody came up with the idea of taking phone calls from fans. Great. So when there's rain delay, we take phone calls for like an hour and then throw it back to the affiliates, because after that it's whatever. And it somehow morphed in from just phone calls to the banana phone. And there was a true banana phone, because the guy that worked for the Reds and their business manager or whatever, his name was Don Breen. He left the Reds and went to Chiquita. And one day he just sent us over a banana phone. So we actually had one in the booth. That was one of the things we pulled out every night, the banana phone. And we'd take these calls during rain delays, and fans loved it, because it was, I hate to say it, but I think maybe some of them had a couple of cocktails before they called the banana phone. And it was, Marty, you remember me? You remember me? I met you at Kroger in 1975 in Beachmont. And then we'd go on, and then they'd ask questions. And then it got so popular, I guess, that we had players calling. John Franco called the banana phone. Adam Dunn called the banana phone, and another player. And then, the old coach from North Carolina would call, and I'm not going to tell you who that really was, but that was a Planet fake call. We had a truck driver call us. So a lot of times people caught on, and a lot of it was real. Some of it was people that just played the role and acted, and we didn't know it at the time. You figured it out after a while, but guys would call. It was hilarious. And then that all came to a grinding halt when somebody called and said, "Hey, Marty, I heard Andrew McCutcheon," and then something about duct tape in his leg, and I'll leave it there. And then you can use your imagination what he used the duct tape for, and that was the end of the banana phone.
Yeah, Adam Dunn called, right? I'm almost positive I remember Adam Dunn one time.
Yeah, he did. And I forget what he was asking him about, but it was funny. Yeah, this is Adam from, Texas. Yeah, Adam, go ahead. Joe? What about your tomato plants?
Did Joe know it was done?
I think after a while he caught on. Yeah, they knew it was Adam Dunn. It was funny. He was good.
That's great.
Before my time, they had Jonathan Winters in the booth, and I have that tape someplace, and it's really funny because he came in and he didn't want to be called Jonathan Winters. He wanted to be. He had another name, and he owned a boneless chicken farm, and that was the whole conversation. It was hilarious.
So, Dave, what do you do when the Reds are on the road? What does your job entail? You're in the booth when they're at home, but when they're on the road, you're back in the studio at WLW.
Yeah, and I still do everything I do except the engineering part of it. So I still have to do the pregame show. I still do the postgame show, all the scoreboard and all that stuff. So I still do the game. I'm just not there, and that's fine too. I mean, I wish it'd be nice to be on the road, but it's fine being at home. That's it's not a bad thing. It's good. I mean, it's funny, since COVID, there's still a couple teams out there that do not travel their announcers. The LA Angels do not travel their announcers. Those guys do it from a studio home. Well, at home, they're at the ballpark, but from a studio on road games, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. That's a joke.
Yeah, no, I agree. You got to be there. You just miss stuff. I mean, so they just got to watch the monitor like we're watching, right? Pretty much. I mean,
yeah. I mean, they have. I think they call it the all nine, so it's overhead, so you see the whole field. Okay. I talked to their engineer in spring training. He says it's a pretty cool setup, but it's still not the same. It's not the same as being at the game, and I think your announcers have to be there, and I think part of that is because you want your announcers down in the clubhouse and on the field before the game starts, because that's how they pick stuff up. You're not going to get that if you're sitting in a studio 300 miles away.
Yeah. Dave, do you have a favorite Reds team from all your years as a Reds fan?
1990. That team was magnificent because nobody expected it. And they went out and won that World Series, and the whole Nasty Boys and, the characters on that team, the Chris Sabos of the world. I think to this day, Tom Browning's my favorite Red. I love that guy. And I know it was before 90, but that perfect game was the coolest thing I've ever seen in sports. And to this day it is, because it's not something you expect. The World Series, you kind of know it's coming, if they're going to win it, you don't expect a perfect game. And when that happened, that was great. But that 90s team, I mean, from spring training in Plant City, that was just fantastic. That whole team, the way they won, and Pinella's personality. That's the one thing. You got a guy, he was bigger than life, and that's that whole team. He was bigger than life. The Nasty Boys were bigger than life. It was just fun to be around them.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, Dave, we really appreciate your time today. You have probably the busiest schedule in sports, it sounds like, bouncing from Reds, Bengals, XU. Heck, you'll probably be doing FC Cincinnati someday. Who knows?
Well, here's the thing, though. It beats working for a living.
Well, hey, thank you very much. We really enjoyed it, and we wish you the best.
All right. I appreciate it, guys. Anytime. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
All right. Hey, give it up for Dave Armbruster. Come on.
Wow.
All right, settle down. Settle down. The studio audience sometimes gets out of control, Dave.
They do. That's crazy. I love it.
The whole town's batting about Cincinnati. What a team, what a team, what a team. Each man and lady from 1 to 80, how they scream, how they scream, how they scream.